This conference will now be recorded. This
That was
conference
quick.
will now be recorded.
Sorry,
We will be done
Alicia.
by
My
9:30.
bad.
And all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye. Okay.
Talk like a-
Well, I guess
Off to a
meeting
great
order
start.
first.
John's breaking up.
So meeting to order. And we have full council, I believe, Lindsay.
Yeah, we have everyone.
Maybe. Okay. Yep. Okay. Anybody for open forum?
None received.
Okay. We have a motion moved by Barbara, seconded by Martin, that will confirm the agenda as amended. Any discussion? None?
Just as
Anyone opposed to
presented
this motion?
today, John. We didn't have an addendum
Oh, is
this week.
Oh, okay. I thought there was stuff that came out or closed or something, so nope. Okay.
Oh, I guess, sorry. Yes, you're right. I added a map to that. So yes, as amended.
Okay. And nobody was opposed to it, so that's carried. And declaration of pecuniary interest, you can declare now or at any time. We have a motion moved by Jason, seconded by Brian, that we adopt the minutes from December 23rd special meeting and the 16th for the regular. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, is anyone opposed to passing the minutes? And that's carried. Next, we'll move right into Liam's report, 7.1.1, moved by Jim, seconded by Michael. And that's the temporary borrowing. Did you want to add anything to that, Liam?
Does he know he's muted? William?
There's definitely some problems. I'm hearing voices just every once in a while at times. Sometimes it's fine and sometimes it's almost delayed.
Well, Liam's still muted, as Barb indicated there. I can see on the list that his microphone is muted.
Oh, okay, because on my list it isn't.
Oh, all right. Well, you tell
But
me
I
what he's
can't-
saying then.
I can't hear him. It's my ears that are muted. Okay, let's go the other way. Does anybody have?
I doubt he wants to add much to this report. This is a yearly thing, right, Dave? We do it
Yeah,
every
that's
year as well as the, yeah.
So does anyone have any questions about this? The temporary
I think
borrowing?
there he is.
There is Mr. Gott right there.
I apologize.
I'm hearing voices.
I'm up the volume, Liam.
Did
anybody hear me?
Very low.
Barely.
Sorry, I wasn't in the room when the meeting started. I apologize. I'm not sure where we are on the agenda.
Oh, okay, sorry. We're at 7.1.1, your temporary borrowing. I just, if you have anything to add to the staff report.
Nope, just standard. We have to do this once a year for the purposes of the CIBC.
Okay. Okay. From council. Is anyone opposed? Carried. Next one is moved by Barbara, seconded by Jason, and it's the bylaw to go with that.
Mr. Mayor?
Barb, you're coming broken in.
Oh, so are you.
Yep.
Michael had stepped away when you asked if anyone was opposed. so I'm not sure that he's opposed, but did he hear that? And John's frozen.
Nope,
Okay,
just listening. So now we have the bylaw for that. On that, to the
is it me, my connection, Lindsay, or is John breaking up as well?
John's breaking up for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know if I should redial, thanks.
Okay, so you could do the vote on the bylaw then, Lindsay, please.
Okay, can you guys hear me? I can hear you better now.
Yeah.
So recorded vote called for bylaw 2021-001, the borrowing bylaw. Councillor Dobreen,
Yes,
Councillor Shearson,
Yes.
Councillor Frew,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Aye.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor Shipston.
Yes.
I vote 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Next is the 7.1.3, the interim tax levy. And that's moved by Michael and seconded by Barbara. Was there anything that you wanted to add to that, Liam?
No, it's again standard. Once a year, we typically pass the interim tax bylaw levy, so we can enter interim bills based on 50% of the prior year. And I just wanted to comment, last year when we passed it, and then later on in the year 2020, we amended it to adjust the interest payment penalty period. Whereas this bylaw implements it as we would normally would, as opposed to what we amended last year.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Okay, hearing none. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Hearing none there, we'll declare that passed. Next is the bylaw. Any comments on the bylaw to go with that? Okay, hearing none. Lindsay, you can do the vote, please.
Yep, so a recorded vote called for the interim tax levy bylaw. Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Councillor Shearson,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Aye.
Councillor Dobreen,
yes,
Councillor Frew.
Yes.
I vote 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. And that was moved by Brian, seconded by Michael. Next one, 7.1.5, the budget, moved by Jim, seconded by Brian. Is there anything on that one, Liam?
So the budget is being just presented as it was at the last meeting, just reflecting what was resolved for the adjustment that was resolved at that meeting to adjust the debt proceeds to bring the tax levy increase to 1.5%. So which was about $17,000 impact.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council on this?
yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Barbara.
Through the chair, since this is the first time we've actually seen the final budget, and we haven't advertised it in the paper as we normally would, and we haven't really had any opportunity for the public to speak or ask questions, because committee of the whole and council meetings don't provide that opportunity unless they delegate and unless they come to open forum. And I don't think people really realize that we have open forum. I would like to propose an amendment, and I did forward that to Lindsay. Just want to make sure that I have the latest I'd like to propose that we consider approval of the budget at the February 3rd council meeting, that we defer the bylaw to the February 3rd council meeting, and that we advertise the proposed budget in newspapers and social media, and that a public meeting be held at the beginning of the February 3rd council meeting to hear comments from the public.
I've shared my screen, so everyone should be able to see it other than Councillor Rice.
I'll
Would you like
second
me
that
to
amendment.
Okay. So that's seconded by Brian. Any discussion on it?
Martin here, John.
Go ahead, Martin.
I never really thought of that aspect of it. And I guess it does fall into the community action plan where we have to be transparent and what have you. So I know it was in the paper as an article, but that was just news to the public. It wasn't anything going out there so people could comment. So I guess because it is, as it says, one of the mission statement pillars for trusted government, maybe it is a good idea. We know we're going to go with the 1.5. Certainly enough, we talked about it enough, and I think it's fair considering what people are going through. So I have no problem with that. I would certainly support it. As I said, I never really thought of that aspect, but I'm okay with it. To defer.
Okay. Not hearing anyone else. Is anyone opposed to this amendment? Not hearing anyone opposed. Okay, not hearing any opposed. That's passed by consent. So now we're back to the original motion amended. Any discussion on that? Okay, is anyone opposed to that? I'll declare that one passed. Next, 7.1.6, moved by Jason, seconded by, and that is, is this
It's
one we're going to delay? It's
Yeah,
deferred, so
that's
we're not
correct.
doing that one. Okay, so your stuff. 7.2.1, moved by Michael, seconded by Brian.
Point of procedure.
Yep.
Should we
Barb.
actually, through the chair, should we actually make a motion to defer the bylaw and go through the motion of any opposed? Because it is on the agenda and we would have to show that in the minutes somehow.
I'll
defer that to Lindsay, but
thanks.
We've
well,
done that with
the amendment basically says to hear it at the February 3rd. So in the minutes, I would just put that it will be on the February 3rd agenda, but we can do a formal motion if everyone's more comfortable with that.
Well, if I might, Mr. Chair.
Yep, sure.
It seems rather redundant to vote on a bylaw when we're not even being asked to consider it, because we already deferred it in the previous motion.
Yeah, I would just skip over it like we have in the past. If it's deferred, I'll just put in the minutes it's been deferred.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this was moved by, seconded by Brian, and it's 7.2.1, the library. To that, Lindsay?
Not a whole lot to add here. We advertised for a closing date just earlier this year. These were the only two that did apply for the position, so they showed some interest. So we're just bringing them forward to have their appointments passed, and then they'll be able to participate in the library board meetings. I believe Jessica is on the call if she has anything to add, but that's all for me.
Okay. Hi, Jessica. Did you want to add anything to that?
Hi, no, but yeah, Lindsay said everything. Yeah, they were the only two that applied, but they seem like great candidates, so yeah.
Great. Nope, that sounds really good. You only need 2 to apply if there's a right to. So, okay, any further
Exactly.
discussion from council? Martin?
Yeah, good morning, Jessica. Martin here. I was glad to read this report after the email you sent out that one person reneged or didn't want to. Then all of a sudden, 2 people signed up. I was wondering, do you have any idea of any experience they have? Like, what's their CV? You know, like, are they library patrons or?
One of them is actually on another council in the township and is a patron, and the other one is also a patron and seemed very enthusiastic.
Good. Okay. And they're able to come into the meeting next week?
They both indicated that they should be able to do that, yes.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or concerns from council? Okay, is anyone opposed to that motion? Hearing none, declare that passed. 7.2.2, moved by Michael, seconded by Brian, and that's the assumption of the Watson Cemetery. Lindsay, if you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so we've had this assumption request come forward. This is a cemetery just in the Egremont and just outside of Proton on the just off the town line or the old town line. We're not sure of any current burials. They would have to do the ground penetrating radar studies all through and be all approved through the Bereavement Authority of Ontario. But that's kind of out of our hands. We're just more, we technically own the land as far as we're concerned, as far as the BAO is concerned. We don't have any records of any proceedings of that cemetery, so they would have to do their due diligence to figure that out, but this is just the land assumption. We're also asking that council waive the requirement to obtain an appraisal of the fair market value of the land, as I explained in the report. And maybe if Clint and I collaborated on this report, so if he wants to maybe explain some of the planning side of it too.
Okay, thanks. Clint?
Not a whole lot to add here, just that one of the big considerations in this, in any sort of a transfer of a cemetery, is making sure that if they do find any remains, that any long lost relatives or whatever have access to visit those grave sites. So that would be stipulated in any agreement going forward, that those remains would have access in some way, shape, or form to the public.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Clint, I'm wondering about the order of process. You know, is the horse come first or the cart come first? I can't imagine anybody objecting to any of this, but my concern is that if, and I presume the additional land is going to come out of the Watson farm, but if the landowner goes through all the trouble to rezone and all the rest of it prior to us actually transferring the land, what are we rezoning? Like, how do we know what we're rezoning if we don't even have a surveyed line? Can you help me there?
Okay. You're right. The way I see, they have to get some assurances first that the severances are going to actually happen in terms of making that area bigger. Otherwise, it doesn't work because they can't put a building on that lot. It's just too small.
Right. No, I understand that.
So that's the first hurdle that has to be overcome. And then once they have some of that comfort where they are able to say, yes, we're going to be able to get a severance on this and make it bigger, then we can look at actually transferring the lands and moving there. Again, subject to the studies and all of that sort of thing and agreements. That's how I
Okay.
see it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
Okay, hearing, yeah, go ahead.
Who?
Oh, okay.
Barbara would like to speak. I don't think you can see my
Okay.
hand, John.
Can't see at all.
I'd like to be recognized. Can you hear me?
I can
Yeah,
hear you,
we can
Barb.
hear you. I think you can go ahead, Barb. John's just frozen.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Clinton, so
I can.
So this is, they're kind of looking to see, all right, if the township will sell us this and we can get a severance, then it'll move forward. If they can't get the severance, they're probably not going to want the land.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So what I am wondering though is, although the land has little value because you can't develop on it, there is still value. I'm not supportive of having an actual land appraisal, but would it not be in the taxpayer's best interest to have an opinion of value like we do for road allowances? Because we're not just giving them this, right? They would be buying the land.
And I would say if it is given, it would be a nominal fee, mainly because at the present time, this is more of a liability to the township than it is anything else. It's not like it's a developable piece of land. It's not developable, so it has extremely little value in that respect. The liability, if someone were to get hurt and all that, is actually quite a bit more than if it was just an open field. It just seems a little. It would be best to get rid of it, in my opinion. Here's your dollar and take it, sort of thing. But that's up to council. If they want to try and get some opinion of value, then that's up to you.
Just a follow-up, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
So, you know, you've just indicated that, you know, we're willing to transfer the land for $1. It still has to go out for.
I didn't say that. That's my opinion. That's what I'm suggesting. It's council who makes that choice.
But then someone could block it by offering $2. It doesn't, and just hold on to it. Like, I don't know that they would. I mean, why would they want the liability? But wouldn't it be a good idea to at least have that, okay, what is the minimum value to set the bar? Even if it's just an opinion of value. I mean, I think we can get those for like $500. Is the land not worth $500? This is the taxpayer's land. It's not our land.
Yes, but it has no value because of the nature of the land. It's more of a liability of potentially poisoning someone's well than it is of actually being able to develop it and get money from it or any sort of thing. It's a negative value if you want to look at it that way.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Clinton.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Jason here, John.
Go ahead, Jason.
I kind of understand what Barb's saying in a way, but then I agree with Clint when it's, you know, as far as we knew up until a couple of weeks ago, it was the Watson farm. And as far as being taxpayers, that community from out that way right to the other end of the township is quite a enormous tax base, I would say. this has been going on for a while. I think I'm all in favor of what Clint said. I guess towards Clint, how hard is it going to be in your mind to get a severance for this? And also to that, I've been talking to the Old Order committee here a bit the last couple of weeks. If they do get a severance, the landowner will require another driveway to access to his shed. They wanted me to note that there. Anyway, just wondered what the chances are of a severance, and I'm fully supportive of going ahead with it.
I think that the chances are better than if you were carving a brand new lot out of a fresh field or whatever. That's a different issue altogether, because you're creating a new conflict in the rural area with neighboring barns and that sort of thing. This is already there, so it still counts. However, we're not creating a brand new lot. We're just simply expanding this one to make it more usable, is what we're doing. So in my mind, that's better planning than to carve something brand new out of there, if we can make the old one work.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Barbara.
Chair. Just one more question. Who would the Old Order Mennonites then therefore be paying for all of the surveys, the advertising?
100%.
The township won't be paying for any of the expense.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Is anyone opposed to this motion? And I'll declare that passed. Next, we have, thanks, Lindsay, for your stuff there. Jim Ellis's report, 7.3.1, moved by Jim, seconded by Martin. And this is winter operations planning. Morning, Jim. Did you want to add anything to that?
Good morning, good people. No, we try and get this out a little bit earlier, but just due to having some staffing being hired and that, we were holding off on getting the complement all together to show everything there. The additional sidewalk route has been added, and this is the format we've been using for a number of years now. So,
yeah. Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Okay. Is anyone opposed to that motion? Oh,
sorry,
Brian,
Mr. Chair.
Yep,
if I could, just a quick question for Jim. I noticed in the report that you talk about various operational issues, and one of them was that you put snow fence up. I'm just wondering, where do we put snow fence up?
we have some down, I think it's side road 19. It's a partial no winter maintenance road that we have to get into. It can be quite challenging at times for plowing. We have had equipment stuck in there trying to keep this piece of road open to the house that's back there. So there are a few spots that we do put it up. It's been regular stuff that we've been doing for a lot of years, these locations, but there are only a few.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Is anyone opposed to that motion? I'll declare that passed. 7.3.2, load restriction bylaw, moved by Michael, seconded by Jim. Anything you wanted to add to that one, Jim?
Yeah, we just, Grey Highlands had done some work on this bylaw. We implemented some of their information from when we purchased the portable weigh scales that the police have. So it just has language built around that to have enforcement with those scales. And also the side road 55 off of Highway 89. With that site plan agreement, the pavement was put down this year for that place at the owner's cost, and that will be a no load restricted road it will not be posted.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, Lindsay, I'll get you to do this one.
This is just the staff report. We're not on the bylaw yet unless I got messed up.
Oh, okay. Yep. Nope, you're right. It just said bylaw in the title, so I was going by that. So is anyone opposed to this? Okay, that one's passed.
Nice cover up.
Yeah. No,
Smooth. Real smooth.
It took me longer to get to messing things up today than usual. Usually by 9:05, I've been tongue-tied, so that's good. We do have a bylaw for that one. Moved by Barbara, seconded by Jason. And this is just the bylaw, nothing to add to that one, Jim?
No.
Okay, any questions or comments? And maybe we'll consider letting Lindsay do this vote.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. A recorded vote called for the load restriction bylaw. Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Aye.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Councillor Frew? You're muted, Councillor Frew.
Got it. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jim. Next, 7.4.1, moved by Michael, seconded by Jason, and that's the village pharmacy development charges. Dave, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think the report pretty well explains everything.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, or Brian, you have one?
I do have a question. I'm just wondering, Dave, why are they asking for this deferral? And
So-
while I'm at it, it says in the report that there's no financial impact. Yes, there is, because essentially we're giving them an interest-free loan for $56,000 for 1 year. Am I not correct?
That's correct, but this is a latitude we have to support business growth. It's within the DC bylaw as those latitudes to create agreements to allow businesses to proceed with projects. So to me,
I'm not arguing that.
Yeah, this is our way of supporting business in various ways and to not encumber them with trying to operating an existing building or existing business, building a new project, and we can defer until they get occupancy and are in a position to dispose of their other property or their, their extra costs of doing business. So that's within our latitudes, and we've done that for other projects in relation to seniors accommodations and so on to help support and defer those costs until a later date. It still allows us the control to collect the DCs because they wouldn't have occupancy until they pay them.
Okay, Brian?
But if I might, Mr. Chair, to my point, there is a cost to this,
Yep.
correct?
Well, there is, but I mean, it's interest, and interest is so low today that it's almost irrelevant.
Right. All right. I'll be sure to tell my banker that next time I'm talking to her.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
but at the same time, it's not like we have a project to put that money in, or we're in a deficit condition for a project. There is money in the reserves, and we would just be adding to that when we collect it later in the stage of the project. That's all. And we're looking at like a 10 to 12 month build.
my concern isn't that we are doing this. My concern in that respect is that you're stating in your report that there is no financial impact. Yes, there is. However small it is, there is an impact. So just to be clear. But anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Here, John.
Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, it does say other than the postponement of the development charges, but then it says approximately 1 year. Dave, you just mentioned it could be a 10, 12-month building process. And obviously the loss of minimal interest, as you said. Are there any fines associated with that if they do not pay within that approximate 1 year, plus or minus? Like, are they held to anything like that?
Yeah, there's no penalty per se, but I guess there is a penalty in that if you don't pay your development charges, we're gonna basically shut down the project because you can't get access to moving into the building.
And they won't get their occupancy permit. Okay, well, that makes sense. That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Go ahead.
One more, John. Sorry if I could follow up.
Yep.
Dave, you mentioned that there were other projects that this deferral has gone on. How many? Is this quite common to do?
This is the second we have done, and we tend to do, look, we'd only consider them when there's a benefit to the community, and this benefit is improvement of downtown.
Yep. Okay. That's for sure. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments?
Jason here, John.
Go ahead, Jason.
I understand. Well, I agree with Brian. There is a small cost. I understand it's to benefit downtown, which I'm all in favor of. I understand, Dave, when you said we only do it where it benefits the township. What if one of our big developers comes and said, "You've done it for this. How about you do it for us?" So I guess we just say no. Is it as simple as that?
Well, for sure. Every one is a council decision. We have deferred 50% of the development charges for the seniors apartment. That was done because, I mean, it's a benefit to, incent this seniors housing. So there's different projects and each one will be considered on their merits.
Okay. Thank you. Michael?
Well, the DC charges, the money we collect is for further expansion to support the growth. So, I mean, it's not that we're taking the money out of the piggy bank today to make this happen. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a cost, but I mean, to get a new building on Main Street in Dundalk, I think is definitely outweighs any cost that are associated with this. So, to get that fencing down and a new building up there would definitely change the look of downtown. And again, the cost of that DC is to expand on our infrastructure down the road. That money is set aside for stuff like that. So it's not really going to affect taxpayers per se today. So I think that's what we need to keep the focus on.
Okay.
Helping out development.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Is anyone opposed to this motion? And I will declare that passed. Next is the bylaw to go with that. Moved by Martin, seconded by Michael. Any discussion on the bylaw? All right, Lindsay, I'll let you do that one.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So recorded vote called for the Dundalk Village Pharmacy Development Charges Deferral Agreement. Councillor Shipstead?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Aye.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
By a vote of 7 to 0, that's carried.
Great, thank you. 7.4.3, moved by Jim, seconded by Brian, and that's the red funding application. And Dave, did you want to add anything to that?
You're muted, Dave.
Sorry about that. Other than we have put together some information there in relation to, you know, a proposal that for downtown, and this is just very initial thoughts to try and resolve some accessibility issues and make it a place to come to as an attraction downtown. You know, could we someday have the market downtown, farmers market downtown for to attract people, and that businesses would take advantage of being open during that time. So it's at very early stages. We're even questioning whether the RED program is a fit for this, because they're you know, they're kind of tough on capital, but they are allowing some capital. It would take a lot of, I think, discussions while the application's in to engage with the community to see if this is something they would be interested downtown, because I think it impacts how people get into and out of that Proton Street area. But anyway, it would be a way to get more space by making the closing part of that Proton Street section and getting more space to do accessible access to those buildings that have 1, 2, and 3 steps to get into along Proton Street on the west side there.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
Would the chances of success be better if we engaged our grant writers?
Well, I'm sure they have skills that we don't have in knowledge. We're actually meeting with them next week to discuss our budget. But you know, that's something we can consider. It's not a big grant. But at this point in time, we're progressing as if we will write the grant. But we're leaving those options open as a possibility.
So 10% of it wouldn't impact it too bad.
Well, it's well, anyway, that's up for discussion. But I guess
Thank you.
to get some money, it might be a small price to pay if we were successful versus not. But you know, in reading through the application, I think this is a point to start this discussion. And I guess we're questioning how successful we'll be no matter who writes it, because they are a little bit tight on capital investments of this magnitude. But I think it's time to start the discussion of with a new building coming in downtown, what downtown should look like in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Martin here,
Go
John.
ahead, Martin. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Dave. Looking at the first off, I agree with Brian. We should have a look at all possibilities, because the grant people, one of the things that I was impressed with, they could stack 3 or 4 grants to make this happen, not just one. So that is something to look at. It'd be good to get the business people involved, because it doesn't look like on the map it's taking away a lot of parking, especially for home hardware. But the plan, I think the new village pharmacy is already set back far enough for an accessible sidewalk, is it not? So that's good to have there. So if we can get a grant to do the accessibility for those shops, especially the restaurants that could come there, I think it's something to really go for, because it will help the downtown. So it's kind of exciting in a way, get the talk going. So I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I do, John.
Okay, go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you through the chair. To Dave, I'm glad to see that while we are waiting for news as to whether or not we're successful to get the funding, that we would be engaging with the public and the businesses like we did with the community improvement plan, perhaps. You talk about in your report that traffic would be diverted through the parking lot and around the drugstore, and that's great, but that there would be interim parking for deliveries. what is your vision to prevent people from just driving through or parking regardless? You know, like, or if there's barriers to that, how would the interim deliveries get through? Like, I'm just wondering how the businesses would have, if they were receiving goods, how would they receive them if not through their front door?
Well, yeah, so they receive goods now pretty much through receiving at the back doors for shipping and receiving.
Okay.
For, you know, customers, there'd be short-term parking in front of buildings and accessible parking in front of buildings where we have roadway.
Okay.
Any parking on Proton Street, I think, would be a shorter term, like maybe 30 minutes, an hour or less, whatever. But I think once you start enforcing those things and putting tickets out, the message soon gets through. But again, those are discussions. What does the downtown business want?
Yeah.
Obviously, we need accessible parking that's close, and we do need short-term parking for, you know, those larger pickups and deliveries to the customer, not so much the wholesalers coming in delivering. And I think this is another opportunity to look at with the transition of the medical center. We own pretty much most of the medical center parking lot. So I think we need to look at additional parking spaces and, you know, agreements to use the rail trail, which is very wide, and development of that rail trail into, you know, yes, access for people to come through on the trail, but also the opportunity for using parking spaces back there for more downtown parking, if this is what we're going to develop downtown into as a place to gather.
Follow up?
Go ahead, Barb. Yep.
Thank you. Now, Dave, I like the concept, and I'm glad that we're going to have town engagement. Would making this a one-way, because, okay, so the businesses on the east side.
Excuse me, Barb, just before we go too much farther into this, do we even want to get into the details now, or is this?
That's a good point. Thank you. We can get into it when we get into the consultation process. I just like the concept, and I'm thinking all kinds of great things. So
perfect. That's good.
And maybe I'll throw out just as a comment. I mean, this is totally a concept. Maybe the businesses will say the road should go one way, the other way, instead of the way we're putting it. But I mean, it's just, let's start the discussion, have the dialogue. I mean, now is a very difficult time to have that dialogue, but I think it can be one-on-one conversations with businesses, and it can be a virtual meeting to at least get started on something.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Barb, don't lose those thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure I won't.
Okay.
I've written them down.
Oh, good. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Brian here, John.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Dave, do we still have all the materials that were worked up there a number of years ago for some concepts of what we could do downtown? Do you remember that project? I can't remember the nice lady's name, but there was a company we hired.
Joan Burt Architects, B-U-R-T.
There's a name. Yeah, there's a blast from the past. Yeah,
we still have those documents and those renderings, and if there is people interested in digging back into that, for sure, and we would make that part of these discussions. But
okay, no, that's fine. That just this isn't the first rodeo that we've done on the main street there.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Hearing none. Anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, I'll declare that one passed. Thanks, Dave. Click your reports. 7.5.1, moved by Jason, seconded by Barbara. And it's the CIP designation and adoption, the community improvement plan. Did you want to add anything to this, Clint?
Just that this is probably a good segue from Dave's reports, in that this is dealing with providing money for people to do some upgrades to their properties, whether it be on Main Street or other places in the township. So this is the last hurdle as far as the planning portion of this goes. In terms of we've got our official plan approved and adopted in terms of the policy to allow this to occur, and now we're simply saying, here's the area where we want to consider for improvements, and it's the whole township is what we're recommending, so we don't favor one area over another. And the second thing is the adoption of the CIP formally. So we created that draft document that went with our official plan amendment to the county so they could see what we were doing. Now we're at the last stage where we're going to adopt it and begin using it. So after today, then it'll be up to council and or the economic development officer to start first of all to start promoting it more so that people are aware that it is there. And then the second thing is to create some sort of committee to review any applications that do come in for appropriateness and those sorts of things. So it's kind of exciting. We're finally at this stage where we can begin hopefully doling out some money and making things look better. So that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Martin?
You're on mute.
You're on mute. Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that. Through the chair, Clinton, with this coming through, it's great that the whole township is going to be involved. And there are monies that are involved in the community improvement plan. I was just thinking, reading this, that because it's the whole township, does it give an option to actually get grants outside the community action plan, like asking the province for a grant to, because it is just become so much larger than just Dundalk, it's the whole township, therefore a lot more people. Is there a chance for a broader grant base to help outside?
Well, certainly if individual property owners want to investigate getting other grants for other properties, they can certainly do that. This is more of a locally funded initiative where if someone in Holstein or Drumore or Swinton Park needs help, or if it's in Dundalk, then we're able to do that at a local level to provide some support for them.
Yeah, well, that's great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, is anyone opposed to this motion? Hearing none, declare that passed. Next we have 7.5.2, and it's the bylaw to designate the township in the CIP area. And that's moved by Brian, seconded by Jim. And any discussion on the bylaw to go with this? I'm hearing a whole lot of nothing, Lindsay, so I'll let you do the vote.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So the first bylaw here to designate the township as the CIP area. Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Aye.
Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay. Next motion is moved by Martin, seconded by Brian, and that's the bylaw to adopt the CIP, 7.5.3. Did you want to add anything to this, Clint?
No. One of the councillors was kind enough to point out a typo, so we'll make sure that gets fixed before it actually gets reproduced. But other than that, it's good to go.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
We have spell check.
Yes, we do, apparently.
It doesn't work when you miss a word, though.
Well, our backup spell check does, so that's okay. Okay, if there's no more questions or comments on that, Lindsay, I'll let you do that one too.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So recorded vote for the bylaw to adopt the CIP. Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Aye.
Councillor Frew,
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen,
Yes.
Councillor Shearson.
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you, Clint, for your reports. 7.6.1, moved by Michael, seconded by Jim, and that's the personnel policy. Kayla, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think I'm good. It was just mainly to add some clarification on a couple of things and update the healthcare spending account amounts with COLA.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Martin?
Good morning, Kayla. Just a question. I couldn't find the answer when I was reading it. Page 313, where you talk about reimbursements, the one in red, about excess amount for prescription drugs. It doesn't say an amount of what that is. Not that I'm worried about it, but you have a maximum amount of 200 per person for chiropractic. But then with the prescription drugs, there's no, it doesn't show the maximum limit there. I was wondering what that is, if it's possible to tell me now or afterwards, whatever.
The way this is written, there wouldn't be a specified maximum. They do have a maximum in their healthcare spending account that they wouldn't be able to go over. We can always add a maximum though if we felt necessary.
Okay, well, see how it goes then, I guess. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm not hearing any. Is anyone opposed to this motion? And I'll declare that passed. And we're on to, thanks, Kayla. We're on to 8.1, and it's the appointment of the CEMCs and EIEIO, I think it says there. It's moved by Jason, seconded by Brian.
Just knew somebody was going to do that. I just knew it.
Yeah. Well, when it's sitting out there, you kind of have to.
Well, exactly.
Did you want to add anything to this, Lindsay?
So this is just, actually, we're kind of doing a bit of a transition of the CEMC role. It's always been in the clerk's department. We're kind of moving it more to the fire department. That a lot of most municipalities have it structured that way. I will remain as the first alternate. So Derek will be appointed as the CEMC. And then we thought Ethan was a good third alternate, that we kind of, someone from arena, someone from the admin, someone from fire. And then usually the EIO is generally a clerk's department staff member. We're usually in charge of getting out information and that sort of thing. So it's pretty simple for us. So I've appointed Alicia to that from the clerk's department. And yeah, so just kind of formally appointing, and we'll send the necessary changes to the province so they're aware.
I think Brian's
cold
frozen.
and Dundalk this morning.
Oh, John's frozen.
Oh, there. Oh, well, there he is. He's back now.
Here we are.
Question, John?
Okay, go ahead.
Lindsay, the concern in the past has been, by if you appoint your fire chief as your community or the CEMC, in the event of an emergency, the fire chief is going to be busy managing the fire department. So there was always that debate about whether you should have another senior staff person as the CEMC. Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Sure, yeah, and we have discussed this quite a bit, and I do agree, if there is an emergency, he's definitely not going to be at the control group at the helm of it. That is why I did remain as the first alternate. But I just find that if you have someone that has that emergency experience to lead you when you're not in an emergency, it greatly helps. I mean, you can do all the training that they make you do and that you need to do, but if you're not in that type of position that I'm not, I feel like you're just not prepared. You know what I mean? Like I don't have that insight to bring to the table that Derek would have from the fire side. So that's why I think as the leader, he would be a much better choice, or someone in that sort of position. But I'm going to stay on, obviously, to help him with the paperwork side of it and that sort of thing. And obviously, if there is an emergency, he'd be likely out on the scene. So we can still take the helm of it. But I think that someone in that position, like an emergency position, is just better suited to provide direction and overall to the plan.
Well, and absolutely in that respect, you're completely right. I guess, you know, in the planning stages, we'd still be able to call on his vast experience and his expertise, no question about that. I'm just concerned that in the early going of an emergency, there always might be that question, well, who actually is the coordinator? If he's on the scene, you know, managing something, you're in your mind, you're saying, well, am I the coordinator, or is he, or there might be a bit of awkwardness there right at the get-go. But in any case, that's fine. I mean, I'm not arguing necessarily. I just wanted to be sure that everybody was aware of it.
Yeah, I think it become even more clear just during COVID-19. I sit on bi-weekly meetings with all the other CEMCs in Grey County, and I'm the only person that's not really a personnel. It's usually the fire chief or the fire prevention officer, that sort of thing. So I just feel like they bring more to the table than I can. I'm just kind of like, well, this is what we're doing in Southgate. I'll update you, but they're the ones with the you know what I mean? They just have that emergency knowledge that I feel like you can't learn unless you're in that position all the time, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree, but they won't be able to say if there's a question on procedure, none of them will know. So that's where your expertise is. So anyway, thank you very much. I understand. Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, Dave, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, and I think to add to what Lindsay said, the struggle with that whole discussion is what we do know is we don't know. Every emergency is different. And there may be an emergency that won't need as much fire resources, and he can step in, where there may be situations, if it was God forbid, another Luma bunk type fire that we had years ago, his resources would be stretched, though he couldn't fill that role, and Lindsay and Ethan would be. So that's why we have three, and that's why we have a diverse group of people in that lead and backup roles, so that we can have flexibility and have knowledge ready to go depending on what event it might be.
And just to add to that, it was a fire emergency, something like that, a Luma bunk, we'd be a couple of hours into it usually before we would need to call the together. It had to have time to escalate and bring in more departments and do more things. So there'd be, yeah, it could be worked out without a whole lot of problem. Martin, then Barbara.
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair. Lindsay, are you expecting to meet a couple of times a year? Because it would be good to get to know each other, and maybe, as what was said, you don't have the knowledge of firefighting, and Derek certainly doesn't have the knowledge of procedures. So, you know, after a couple of meetings, would it be, you know, just to get to know each other and have some kind of little playbook where if he does go off, at least you have a couple of guidelines to say, okay, he's there. This might be the way it's going to happen. And he might know that, okay, I'm here. Just what John said, a couple of hours, I'll have to phone in to my clerk and we'll set a program up. Is that part of it? Like even with the meetings?
So, yeah. So basically, Councillor Shipston, the guideline is our emergency plan.
Okay.
So we would follow that. And I mean, it's been a bit different this year. We've met lots, obviously, because of COVID, but we didn't really do a yearly meeting to actually focus on the plan. So we will be scheduling that. Normally, we would do that yearly, and we would also do a training yearly. That was waived last year because of COVID. But yeah, we would sit down and discuss those things, any updates to the plan. But the plan is essentially the guideline, and that's what you use in the emergency, and that's what you would follow. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. Barbara?
Thank you, through the chair. To Brian's point, Lindsay, you bring that procedural background as well. Would the alternates attend these bi-monthly meetings or bi-weekly meetings, or perhaps maybe not every meeting, but on a quarterly basis to bring that expertise to the table, or to learn more from the emergency management side? Or is it just the emergency coordinator that attends those meetings?
Sure. So the meetings, they're not normally a scheduled meeting that we've always had. Us CEMCs in Grey County just decided to at first meet weekly during COVID, just because we were sharing information and keeping up to date on the other municipalities, that sort of thing. It wasn't normally a meeting. Now it could continue because it is good for information sharing. But if you're not in an emergency situation, I don't think we would need to meet as frequently. But going forward, we are carrying on with our bi-weekly meetings. So I'll still attend, and Derek will also attend. And I'll definitely attend, because if he were to get called out or that sort of thing, I don't want to miss that information sharing. So we both attend. Ethan wouldn't necessarily need to attend as the third alternate, but he's welcome for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, does anyone oppose? Oh, it's a bylaw, so give that to you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So recorded vote called for the appointment of the CEMCs and the EIO. Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Aye.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn the chair over to Brian at this point. I have a medical appointment, so I have to leave. So I'll turn that over to you, Brian, and thanks everybody for what we've got so far.
Take care.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we'll continue on. The next item is item 10.1, regular business. Be it resolved, the council approve the items on the regular business consent agenda dated today. Does anybody want any of those pulled for further discussion? Not seeing any. Lindsay, do you have the mover and seconder there? I don't have the advantage of seeing those.
Yep. Councillor Shearson and Councillor Frew.
Thank you very much. Is anyone opposed to that motion? Oh, Dave. I see Dave there. Go ahead, Dave. You are muted, Mr. Milner.
Thank you. I'm going from paper here, so sorry about that.
Okay.
I don't see on the agenda, and maybe it's got missed, my CEO 2021-01 report.
That was not on the agenda.
That is not on the agenda.
It should have been, and that has been a miss. But anyway, we'll deal with it.
Is there a time sensitive matter to it, Dave?
Yes, there is.
Perhaps then I could ask for a motion to waive procedure to allow you to present that report. Would that help?
Yes, and I guess what it is it's rather simple. ATEL is looking for a letter of support for a project called Rapid Response Funding. And that rapid response funding is to support Drumore to Dundalk, a project to install fiber cable. And all it is a letter of support that we will support the project and approve of working with them to get those services in place. So it's complementary to the SWIFT project. It's a federal fund. It doesn't have the same mapping discrimination of servicing being provided by other service providers. This is strictly an effort to get more fiber in the ground for high-speed communications.
Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to ask if someone would propose a motion to waive procedure so we can allow the CAO to present that report. Would someone do that, please?
I will, Brian.
Martin, seconded by Barb, I see. Thank you. Does anyone have any opposition to that? Seeing none. Okay, thank you.
I think it has to be,
Dave.
Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
I think because it has to be, I'm just procedurally, should this be a recorded vote? Because we do need a 2/3 majority. I'm just asking procedurally to Lindsay, does it have to be a recorded vote?
I'm going to suggest, because there was no opposition, that we don't need to. If
Okay.
someone was opposed, absolutely, we'd have a recorded vote. But I didn't hear any opposition. Am I
Okay,
okay with that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, I believe that's fine because, like you said, there was no opposition.
Okay, Dave, your report, would it be good, or do you have the ability to put it up on the screen so everybody can see it, or is that necessary?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to members of, well, I'll send it to Lindsay right now. Maybe she could do that.
Yeah, I can do that now, and I'll also upload it with the agenda after for members of the public.
For sure.
Barb?
I was just wondering, should we take a brief recess while Lindsay receives the email and gets it up on the screen, or how long do you think that will take?
Would you like a 5-minute recess, Lindsay?
Depends if Dave's sending it right now, it'll be quick, but if not, then we can.
I think it would be timely to take a break and then you can have a chance to open the report before we come back, maybe in 5 or 10 minutes.
All right, let's take a recess. It is 12 minutes after 10. Let's come back at 10:20. All right.
Lindsay, my internet is really slow because of the meeting, so I'm trying to download the report.
So it is 10:20. Madam Clerk, are we ready to roll?
Yep, I have it. I have his report on the screen with the motion, and I also have the letter available if anyone wants to see that.
Yeah, I see it there. Thank you. Do we have quorum? Everybody's back, or enough people are back?
Rice, you there?
Yep.
Okay, we're good, Brian.
All right, thank you very much. So this is the CEO report that Dave was alluding to earlier. Dave, do you have anything further to add to it? You are muted. That's 3 times today. Madam Clerk, is there a fine for that or what?
I have nothing further to say.
4 more years, I believe it is.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Any questions or concerns with this report? Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you. We have not got a mover and seconder for this report, I don't believe.
You are absolutely correct. Would someone care to move this? I see Councillor Shifston. Someone else like to second that? Michael, thank you. Shearson. Councillor DeBreen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the benefit of perhaps a caller on the line who may not see this report, could the resolution and a little bit of, could there be a better summary for those who may be listening in? They may not be able to see it on, I don't know if they're watching, if they actually see the report.
So what ATEL are proposing is they would apply for this funding. It's a rapid response funding through the federal government's I believe it's a universal program. And what they want to do is install fiber that would continue on from the SWIFT project at Drumore and come across and tie into Dundalk. Initially, I would think that the discussions will likely be to bring the fiber out to County Road 9 and all the way into Dundalk. And then that would allow proliferation for smaller projects in the future to get to Cedarville and Swinton Park and so on. But this would be basically a major route to tie the community from the west to the east together. And it also would facilitate future growth into Badros, as what his plan has always been, but that's not under our jurisdiction. But this is a big deal to really connect our community from one end to the other, and it would provide this would provide high-speed fiber access to the municipal office and to Hopeville for sure.
And to be completely clear, there is no financial commitment by the township. We are simply sending a letter of support for the project. Councillor DeBreen.
Through the chair, Dave, you alluded to it going across County Road 9. Will they need a letter of support from the county?
That's something they're working on separately. They're asking for us. We didn't get into those discussions, but I'm assuming that is the route they would be. They may take Southgate Road 22 as well. I don't know for some of it, but again, it came up fairly quickly, and that's why we've got it under the council agenda here.
I fully support the letter of support.
Okay, thank you very much. Everyone can see, or most everyone can see, the motion on the screen there. Is there any further comments or questions? Is anyone opposed to this motion? I'll declare that carried. Okay, moving on to the, is there a notice of motion from anyone? Nope, not seeing any. Consent items, regular business. As before, Lindsay, who were the movers and seconders? Sorry.
So, on the regular business.
Oh, we've done that. Okay, good. Okay, now
yeah,
we're on to
the correspondence.
Correspondence now, 10.2. Thank you very much. Do we have a mover and seconder for that?
Yeah, Councillor Frew and Councillor Dobreen.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to have any of those items pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, I'll declare that carried. Resolutions from other municipalities, 10.3. Mover and seconder.
I did have you as the mover, but can I get someone else?
I will.
Okay,
Okay,
so
Martin.
Councillor Shipston and Councillor Dobreen was the seconder.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to have any of those pulled for further discussion? Being none, I'll ask if there's any opposition to the motion as read. Hearing none, I'll declare that carried. We need a motion to go into closed session. Lindsay?
No, this is just the closed consent.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, closed consent, and then we have members' privilege and
Right.
county report.
Yep. Okay. Sorry. I'm still not used to the two closed session proposal. Anyway, county report, item number 11. I don't have anything further to add from what you can see probably if you click on that link, unless there's any questions. The county we have a county council meeting tomorrow. We will begin our deliberations of the budget soon. We've seen a draft and it's online at the county website. And I'm trying to remember now, it's been quite a while since I met with the county council, but I think it was at 2.3, 4, somewhere around there. That's the draft, and we'll be deliberating that budget in the very near future. So unless there's any further questions, move on to members' privilege. Does anybody have anything they'd like to speak to? Dave?
So if I could take the time to just indulge the council and to an opportunity to maybe update the community if there's anyone on, that in light of Premier Ford's announcements yesterday to roll back and the stay-at-home order, we evaluated yesterday afternoon and we've rolled back even further on staff in the office to reduce contacts in support of his order. We did have 6 people in the office. We've cut that back to 2. And of the other people and the already existing people that are working from home, we've divided the evenings up into department access. 1 person in the evening can go in, or 2 if they divide the time up. But we've got 2 in the office doing basically payroll and accounts payable, and answering phones, and more so the second person for just employee safety of not working alone in case something was to happen. Building department is pretty much staying status quo, although we're under discussions with having admin work from home, and if they're in the office for a day or a half a day or 2 half days per week, it would be with no other building staff in there, that we could provide that isolation and less contact. And we're also reviewing the library, and there'll be discussions today as to whether curbside continues or not. The challenge with curbside is not so much the curbside transaction, but we're understanding that we need to actually screen the people that are doing curbside. So to me, there's more risk of doing the screening than the actual transaction. But we're evaluating and looking at that. Some people are suspending curbside till February 10th, and some are not. So we're going to have discussions with Jessica when she finds out more later today. Other than that, the essential services of roads and water and all that sort of thing is continuing, but we're reviewing all safeguards to make sure employees are safe and the public is safe. And we're really taking a very hard look at issues like entering homes and that sort of thing for isolation. For maintenance of water meters and that sort of thing will be only on a sort of an emergency as needed basis. But all those things are under discussion, and we've implemented most of the necessary things to make it safer for staff and the community and everyone in general.
Okay, thank you for that, Dave. Councillor DeBreen, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave, welcome back. I'm sure you've been well into it, and Happy New Year. What I wondered is, or what I understand is that building permits for the footings that have already been granted, that construction can continue. Will our building department still continue to issue permits? And maybe Bev will understand this better. Hello, Bev. Happy New Year. I'm just wondering how the building department will be affected in that regard, and how do we safeguard them when they're out at sites, and probably the same as they've been doing, but how does that all work?
So I'll pass it off to Bev. We've had those discussions, and basically there'll be nothing new start. But there is guidelines. Residential can go ahead, agriculture buildings cannot, but I'll revert to Bev on answering more detail.
Mr. Fisher, how are you today? Please.
I'm very good, Mr. Deputy Mayor. How are you? So through the chair, it's early. Everything is coming down furiously. But what I'm reading to date is we are going back to our restrictions we did in early April, and maybe a little bit more restrictive, because this time agricultural buildings are not being named unless they are involved in food production. So that is going to restrict, but the residential buildings are still going if they have started. If they have not, then they do not get to proceed. So we still will be conducting business. We will still be doing inspections with our restrictions. I currently do not enter a building that has been occupied for a final. We stay away from that building until this is over. We are doing other inspections using our protocols and safe distancing, masks, etc. The only other thing is the plan is still to issue building permits so people are ready to go when this is over and construction can start. We don't have a lag in time or an influx that we are overwhelmed and cannot produce the permits for people to get going again.
Very good. Thanks, Bev. Councillor Shearson, or Councillor, I'll go to DeBreen first if you have a follow-up, please.
I did. So to that point, just to clarify, if someone has already begun construction on their house, they can continue, but a agricultural building that has already begun cannot?
That would be my understanding at this time.
Oh, that's okay. Thanks.
My understanding at this time.
Unless it's food production.
Unless it's food production, yes. Same as an industrial shop cannot continue at this time unless it has something to do with food production, biochemical, personal safety devices.
So every drive shed in the township that's under construction is now going to be manufacturing pickles for permit purposes. Absolutely. Councillor Shearson, you had a question.
I just kind of wonder, are we open to liability if we can't do a final inspection and something happens to someone in a house that we didn't approve that they could go into?
No, we're doing the major one, which is the occupancy. And at that time, we feel that there are not people living in that house yet. So it is still fairly safe for us to wear our mask and go in. We don't need air regulators or breathers at that point. The reason why we're pulling back from the final is people have quite often been living in a house under an occupancy or a temporary occupancy for a month or whatever, and the air is a little bit more used. That's a good word. Yes. And there are no requirements that the final be done before you move in. It just says the final, so we can close the permit. They get their deposit back, and we know the MPAC can move, or MPAC actually moves before that at occupancy, but just to clear it up and finish it and close all the files.
Okay. Any further questions on that, Dave?
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, final is more along the lines of lot grading is not perfect, and we want to see it finalized. Is that not correct, Bev?
For the majority, yes. Like I said, we will grant a temporary occupancy. Quite often we go into a building and they have a temporary guard on the stairs so they can move in and start to live there. We make note of that temporary guard, and whenever they call for a final, we go back and make sure that guard has been brought up to the correct standards of the code or the drawings that were submitted, that kind of thing. Final may include a deck that was not there at occupancy because they blocked the exterior door to the deck and or put a temporary Juliet rail on. So they were allowed to gain their occupancy and start living in the house and build the deck at a later time. So most of the time we're outside. Occasionally we have to job inside to see something was completed that was temporarily looked after for an occupancy.
We have had
Okay.
discussions about if finals were required for legal reasons of some nature, maybe because the house is being sold or something, we can give provisions where they would have to leave the property for at least 72 hours to allow us to, see that the air is clearing, and we would then go in and do a final. But that's only on special situations.
Very good. Okay. Anything else for members' privilege? Seeing none, we'll move on to our closed meeting. Lindsay, we have a mover and seconder.
Yes, to go into closed, Councillor Dobreen and Councillor Shipston.
Thank you very much. Anyone opposed to that motion? Seeing none, I will say, okay, you need to do the usual, disconnect from this meeting, and we will see you, as the mayor says, on the other side.
Hi, Lindsay, it's Barb.
Martin here, Lindsay.
I don't think Lindsay's
Perfect.
here. Barbara's here.
Jason's here.
See Jim is Jim Fru's on the line. There he is. So we must have everybody, do we, Lindsay?
Yeah, we're good. Dave hasn't come back, but that's okay.
Maybe he's not coming back. Did we make him mad?
Well, as long as we have quorum, we can continue, right?
Yeah, we
That's
can
correct.
go ahead.
But I was just waiting for the benefit of the doubt. All right, well, we'll continue on then. So we have the confirming bylaw. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? That is the next item?
No, we have a motion coming out of closed. I can read it if you'd like.
Oh, yes, please, if you wouldn't mind, so that everybody knows what we're doing, including me.
Yeah, so motion coming out of closed session, be it resolved that council receives staff report CAO 2020-004C for information, and that council directs staff to proceed with negotiations as discussed in closed session and return to council with purchase and sale agreements when they are complete for consideration to approve. And that is moved
Excellent.
by Councillor Rice and seconded by Councillor Shipston.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions or discussion on that? Hearing none, is anyone opposed to that? Hearing no opposition, I'll declare that carried. Now we come to the confirming bylaw, and I will, who the mover and seconder is?
Councillor Shearson and Councillor Shipston.
Very good, thank you. I will ask if there's any discussion on that bylaw. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you take the vote, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Milne. So recorded called on the confirming bylaw. Councillor Dobreen,
Yes.
Councillor Shearson,
Yes.
Councillor Frew,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Aye.
Mayor Woodbury is absent. Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor Shipston.
Yes.
I vote a 6-0. That's carried.
Thank you so much.
Adjournment. You can't move it, Brian. I would be happy to move that we adjourn.
Well, I was just going to unilaterally declare that we finished the agenda and adjourn, but that's fine. We'll ask for a mover and seconder. So Barb and Mike, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, we don't get the opportunity. You always get to do it.
I suppose that's
geez.
true. I suppose. All right. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on adjournment? Hearing none, I will declare that carried and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation. Always entertaining to talk to the CAO.
Happy New Year.